Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's extraordinary council meeting. In accordance with the constitution of the council, this evening we will consider one single item of business, which is to appoint to the post of Joint Chief Executive. Thank you for coming so close to Christmas. Please raise your hands if you wish to speak, and also if you cannot hear, please indicate. This meeting will be live streamed, and you'll be using your electronic voting system when it lights up. We had a lot of practice at that last time, so I don't need to read it out, I think. Agenda item, oh, beg your pardon. Councillor Follows is in remote attendance, and the monitoring officer has advised that he may speak but not vote on item 3. So using my discretion, he can speak after the item has been proposed and seconded by members present in this chamber. So now we come to agenda item number 1, which is apologies for absence. Ben, are there any?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have apologies this evening from Councillors Atkins, Barker-Lomax, Denis, Deuce, Keel, Law, McLean, Miralese, Palmer, Staunton, Steiger, Sullivan, Councillor Liz Townsend and Councillor Ward.
Thank you. And declarations of interest, are there any? No. So we come to agenda item number 3, which is the appointment of a joint chief executive. The Joint Appointments Committee met on the 14th of December to interview for the post of the Joint Chief Executive, and the recommendation of the committee was circulated to all members electronically earlier today and published on the website, and there are paper copies in the room. Deputy Leader Councillor Clark, would you like to move the recommendation and speak to the item, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And who would have thought that my last utterance as Deputy Leader would have been on such an important item? I'd like to move the motion, and then say a few words of introduction. And the motion is that the formal appointment of Pedro Robel to the post of Joint Chief Executive and designation as Head of Paid Service for both Waverley and Guildford Borough Councils be confirmed at a salary of £165,000 per annum, subject to the usual HR clearances. Now, by way of introduction, I think it would be useful to explain that the Joint Appointments Committee is made up of 6 people, 3 from each council, the leader, the deputy leader, and the leader of the opposition. The role of chief executive attracted 30 applicants, 10 of which were shortlisted, then down to 5 who were interviewed by the Joint Appointments Committee last week. And that was after they'd been through thorough technical assessments, met with our directors informally, followed then by a local stakeholder panel that was made up of senior members and representatives from Surrey University, Godalming Town Council, Frimley ICB, and Guildford BID. The JAC, which I will refer to from now on because was unanimous in favour of Pedro Robel. Pedro has spent 20 years in central and local government as an executive director in a number of senior posts, including planning, taxation, strategy. And in fact, in the last 3 years, he has been the executive director for innovation and communications at Westminster City Council. He has described his main attraction to the role of our chief executive to be the scale of the challenge, to bring our 2 councils closer together, but not in a merger, in a very volatile financial environment. For Pedro, the role of chief executive represents the perfect opportunity to define and deliver a clear future for both ambitious councils. And he recognised that the enthusiasm from the politicians for transformation and partnership has been compelling. Every member of the JAC could see clearly that Pedro will bring a high degree of leadership energy to Guildford and Waverley's collaboration. He cares strongly about delivering for communities, and we felt his values align with our own. Finally, Pedro had identified the slow pace of our collaboration so far, and he realises that if our residents are going to buy into this collaboration, then our community aspirations need bringing to life, both in the way we deliver and communicate our services.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Merriweather, I believe you're seconding.
I'm happy to second, Madam Mayor. Thank you. I actually have very little to add to Peter's introduction. Our residents can be reassured that not only is this a heavily regulated and a heavily prescribed process, it was an extremely thorough process as well, in search of a replacement for Tom, who met some extremely demanding personal specifications out of the 22 personal specifications that were identified, all of them extremely tough. Essential was the category for 21 of them. Only one of them was desirable, the rest of them were essential. So to attract such a strong shortlist was gratifying, and to end up with Pedro, who's up for the challenge that this council faces, not only next year, but the year after and the year after that, we should be grateful, and I thoroughly commend the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Merriweather. So is Councillor Follows on screen? Yeah. Councillor Follows, over to you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Good evening, members. My apologies for not being able to attend tonight in person to introduce the item as chair of the JAC, whose recommendation is before you tonight. And thank you, Madam Mayor, for your indulgence in allowing me to speak on the item. Trying to find somebody to step into Tom's shoes, I think, as all of you will agree, is a difficult ask for anybody. And as Councillor Clark has indicated, we've been exceptionally fortunate to have quite a significant pool of individuals applying for the role. As details in the papers and in line with my reporting back to members over the course of the last few weeks, we've had over 20 applicants, filtered down to 10 candidates, short calls between the candidates, myself and the leader of Guildford, and separate calls between the candidates and Tom. Many took up this opportunity and many have seen the challenge before them. This allowed us to narrow down to a short list of 5 for interview. 1 pulled out on the day of the session last week. An excellent set of candidates, and I particularly want to thank the leader of Guildford, Councillor Julie McShane, who joined me for all of the calls, Julie Towers at Penner for all of their work, John Formby, who heads up our HR, Alice Rains, who ensured that all of the calls actually happened, that everybody attended them, and for all of those who've supported the process over the last few weeks, because actually it's been quite a task getting this all done in such a short space of time. I'm sure anyone who's been through the details will see an extremely qualified nominee, but what you won't see unless you've met him is the energy and intelligence and drive, and I have absolutely no doubt that you will see that very soon. And there is a reason that Pedro was the front runner, and it has a very clear alignment to our values as a council, and you'll see, I think, his commitment to that challenge and the transformation ahead. I had one question raised to me in advance by a member of the council in regards to the statement regarding pre-checks and clearances. Just to confirm, those include a right to work check in the UK, 2 employment references, a confidential health questionnaire, a completed code of conduct form, and certificates that prove your qualifications. I can also confirm that the slight salary uplift versus the job description was agreed by all members of the JAC by email after the meeting that we had in person. To conclude, the JAC was unanimous in its choice, supported by the other technical and stakeholder panels and analysis. Full Council of Guildford Borough Council has at 6 o'clock this evening also given its assent and support. So, Madam Mayor, members, I commend this appointment to Council, and please do have a great Christmas and a Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you indeed. Councillor Martin, you'd like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was a member of the Joint Appointments Committee and I endorse all that's been said so far about the candidate that we are wanting to, or what we are recommending to this council. I might say that I made clear to all of the candidates my opposition to the collaboration arrangements. And in spite of that, I felt that this person was absolutely the right person to lead these two councils. And I endorse the recommendation from the Joint Appointments Committee and will certainly be voting in its favour at this council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Hyman, then Councillor Davidson.
Thank you very much. Well, what I've heard so far is good, except in the papers I see that it says that we were going to be sent the details before the weekend on Friday. I don't know whether that's true or not. The statement that's made in the papers, which says that they will be the details of the candidate will be circulated to us on Friday. I've had no time really to look at this properly, but what I did see is that what we've got here, which is I think is exempt, even though at the front of it, as it says, public documents pack, we're told elsewhere that it's exempt. I am allowed to say what it doesn't say, of course, in there, and it doesn't tell us that between the second issue here, the second last job here, Chief Strategy Officer, Valuation Office, and the Executive Director job at Westminster, there were two other roles, according to his CV at Westminster, which was the Director of Planning at MHCLG and the Director of Cabinet Office Systems Unit and the Cabinet Office Head of Profession for Policy. So there's a lot more that he's been doing, although it does possibly mean that he was changing jobs every year, and I hope that we'll be looking at a settled position here. So I did have my reservations till I heard what Councillor Martin and others have said. I did watch the brief webcast of the Guildford session, which was held 3/4 of an hour ago, and I did really have a lot of sympathy for what Councillor Joss Bigmore said, asking the questions of what you know, the timing just before Christmas is a strange time to make such an appointment, and you know, we perhaps should be ensuring that we're getting the very best candidates. Well, I'm not going to question whether we have or not. From what I've heard, I don't know that I'd get a better chance to speak anyway on what I thought. He did question that why had it gone up from 158,000 but by nearly 5% to 165,000, what are the reasons? And he wasn't really given reasons, and I would just like clarification whether the members of the JAC were told, and who by, that we were going to pay extra, and why particularly are we paying an extra £7,000 nearly over what it was advertised at. So specifically, can I ask, you know, what is the reason for that? Because there was concern, Councillor Bigmore expressed concern, it might be because we were being held for ransom, and whether that would be a suitable sort of act for someone applying for a position like this. So, and I hope I'm not attacked in the way that Councillor Bigmore was politically for having tried to do his job of holding the council to account, which is what we're here for. It did go through to Council at Guildford. I am minded at the moment. I was minded to abstain, but I think I'm going to vote in favour on what I've heard. But I would like an answer to the question. It would depend on getting an answer to the question of why has it gone up £7,000? Was that at his behest to the candidate and a requirement, or was there another reason why? For some reason, and were the JAC told that they were going to offer that, or was that something they had a part in the decision making and the rationale for? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hyman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, I can confirm that all members of the Joint Appointments Committee unanimously agreed the slight increase to the advertised salary. I'm afraid I can't provide any reasons for why that came about, but possibly members of JAC may be able to comment on that further. Thank you.
Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it's fair to say when in any organisation, when you're offered the role, that is the one and only opportunity you have to ask for more money. He did ask, it was put to the members of the JAC, and they agreed. It's as simple as that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Davidson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm fully supportive of the candidate as I see it from his CV. And as our leader has pointed out, very impressive that we've had quite so many candidates applying for this role. It goes to show that Waverley Guildford is an attractive post. The question I have is, it's not clear from the papers that I've seen, is what are any additional remuneration or costs associated with taking on Pedro as our new CEO?
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for that question. I can confirm that Pedro has been taken on without any terms and conditions that are unique. They are the terms and conditions of Waverley Borough Council. And in fact, he lives in Surrey, so there is no costs in terms of relocation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ken Reid.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Like other councillors, I won't have had the opportunity to see the CVs of all the other candidates. But one thing I can say is that I personally was very impressed with the CV that we have seen. And I think even if we'd had no other applications, that I would have gone for this particular person myself. But there is one question I would like to ask, because the offer is conditional upon usual HR clearances. It would be nice if someone could tell us here now what those clearances might involve. Thank you.
Councillor Reid, I do think Councillor Follows answered that, but you may not have heard it because he was speaking. But would you be so kind, or Councillor Clark, would you? Yeah, thank you, Susan.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe it is the usual HR checks, which would include somebody's right to work in the country, the taking up of references. I think there is a medical clearance questionnaire and evidence required of professional qualifications.
Councillor Hyman.
May I speak again, or can I do it at the point of order? Is it under Article 12 information?
Do you have a point of order?
Well, it would be under Article 12, which is information necessary to make the decision that I'd forgotten to say.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Councillor Hyman. That is not a point of order, and you have already spoken. So may I just ask if there are any other speakers here this evening?
Point of order, Madam Chairman. It does say in the papers that we're going to be told the start date, and we haven't been told what the start date will be. We were going to be informed of that verbally tonight, and we haven't been. And in answer to the answer given to another councillor's question was did not include whether or not he would get the electoral registration officer, or whatever we call it, that role, which normally goes with the chief executive officer as well, whether he would get that on top. Returning officer, thank you very much. So there's two issues there of information we should perhaps be told.
Madam Mayor, just to confirm, that's not a point of order in terms of the constitutional provisions. It must be a breach of the law or a breach of the council procedure rules, which I don't believe that is. I think Councillor Hyman is asking for additional information, which possibly will be picked up in a right of reply.
Point of order, Madam Chairman, under Article 12, we are to be given all the information necessary to, for the decision, and we must not consider things which are irrelevant, and we must consider things that are relevant, and that is relevant because we were promised that information.
So may I ask you to desist? And if there are no other speakers, I'm happy to move to the recommendation. Would you like it read again? Oh, I beg your pardon, Councillor Clark. Would you like a right of reply and sum up?
I think I probably said 4 minutes worth in the introduction, and unless you want me to read it again, I have nothing further to add.
Thank you indeed. So we do move to the recommendation. Everybody has it in front of them. So when the lights light up in front of you, please vote.
I apologise that I have pressed the wrong button. I meant to press green. Too enthusiastic, I think.
Through you, Madam Mayor, does the member want to repress the button with the correct? Thank you.
The recommendation is carried, 32 votes in favour, 1 against and no abstentions. So that is the meeting over. Thank you very much and happy Christmas.